All right, welcome to episode 47 of the Jake Blanchard podcast. As you can see, I'm not in Boise, Idaho. I'm actually in sunny Southern California. I'm with Bedros Keuilian. I'm at his headquarters here. Man, I'm really excited to talk to you today. Bedros is an extremely successful entrepreneur. He has several multi-million-dollar businesses that he started, most notably Fit Body Bootcamp, the franchise, international fitness franchise, the supplement company Keuilian. He's also a best-selling author with his book Man Up, and he's the founder of the Modern Day Night Project, which is a 75-hour intensive men's self-development training program. It's probably one of the hardest mental and physical tests that somebody can go through. I'm a proud graduate of it, and I am so excited today to unpack Bedros and have him on the Jake Blanchard podcast.
Amen. First off, dude, thank you for the opportunity. Seriously, like the way you communicate and connect dots on your show is awesome. Not only a friend, but I'm a fan. And number two, you were crazy enough to go through the first class of the project. And I always think the dudes that went through the first project class, like you guys are cut from a very different cloth. There was no website.
Nope.
There was no like teaser video like we put out, so you even know what's coming, like a truck pull and ice baths and hikes. You had no idea. You're just like, I'm gonna pay and show up.
Yeah.
And
I showed up in a polo t-shirt. I was like, I'm ready for this seminar.
And you crushed it, man.
Yeah, it was fun. It was intense,
Wow.
and I'm excited to talk about my experience in that journey as well.
Yep.
But you're an interesting cat. You've got a fascinating background about how you came to the United States. And I'd love to hear a little bit more of that, just so as we anchor in here to find out a little bit about you.
So I always tell people I'm the Immigrant Edge and I'm the American Dream. The Immigrant Edge because having come to the U.S. from the Soviet Union, I understand oppression, I understand limitations in all levels of growth, personal growth, financial growth, freedom, right? And so when my dad decided that we were going to escape the Soviet Union in 1980, I was 6 years old, and I very clearly remember how oppressive things were, to the point where several months before we made our escape into Italy, and then from Italy into the United States, my dad got a knock on the door, and he answered the door, and in walked two men in suits. I remember it was dark outside. This is in Armenia, Soviet Union, and they were asking him, do you have any plans to leave? And he's like, nope. Well, are you making any side cash, making suits on the side? Because my dad was a tailor in Armenia, and he worked in a suit manufacturing plant. He goes, nope. They searched the house to see if they could find any chalk, any a yardstick, I guess a meter stick there. Anything that would show that he was making money on the side and potentially going to escape. They found zero evidence. My dad, being the clever dude that he was, it's like, hey, it doesn't seem like you guys are finding what you're looking for, but I don't want to waste your time having come out here. I've got this bottle of vodka. Do you guys want to sit down and brush it off with me? And before you know it, they're just getting drunk at the kitchen table and laughing it up. And my mom, my brother, my sister, and me are just like, holy crap, I think we're like dodging a bullet here. And I share this with you because what a visionary for my dad to say that we're going to escape the Soviet Union. He bribed the Russian consul, and we escaped. And the escape was into Italy because Italy was communist sympathizers at the time in 1980. Then we went to the American consulate in Rome, Italy. And after 10 days of getting our paperwork squared away, and my dad saying, look, I'm a political refugee and I denounce communism, we were given the right to legally enter the United States. And so, growing up here, I had to learn the language, the culture. We were broke and we were poor. People always ask me, what's the difference between broke and poor? Poor is a state of mind, man. It's a state of mind. Living in Section 8 housing, one of the apartments that we lived in was so filthy I got lice as a kid. I was 8 years old at the time. We were still financially broke, so my mom had my dad siphon out gasoline from a parked car into a jar, and then she washed my hair with gasoline to kill the lice because we couldn't afford lice treatment. poor is a state of mind where you just have no hope. And there was plenty of times where I remember hearing my dad saying, like, we keep running out of money before we run out of month in this country. Did I make the wrong decision to come here? I thought I wanted something better for my kids, but we just keep seeming to run out of money. And so that's the poor state of mind. The broke state of mind, like, you know, I do well for myself these days.
Sure.
But if I can make a few bad financial decisions, I could end up broke again, Jake, but I'll never be poor again.
Okay.
Broke is a financial place where you can be, and you can bounce back from broke. It is hard to bounce back from a poor state of mind because it's a poverty state of mind.
Absolutely. And then so, you know, how did this get you into the fitness industry or that space in general?
Yeah. So what happened there is, again, being a foreigner growing up, you know, it's not like your parents tell you to go play sports or eat healthy. Like the number one thing is to have a roof over your head.
Okay.
Right? The number two thing is to not run out of money to be able to afford the roof over your head. Food was number three, and it was found in dumpsters behind grocery stores. They threw away like things like bread and cheese and milk and eggs that was expired, like a grocery store. So it's expired, but it's not necessarily hasn't gone bad yet. But they can't sell it. So my dad found these dumpsters, and I would dumpster dive, being the youngest and smallest in the family. He would throw me in the dumpsters, and I'd pull out all these things. And the bread had mold on it. My mom would pick off the mold, and she'd fry the bread up, and we'd eat it. Right? So it wasn't like we had access to the healthiest of foods, or we even knew what a healthy food item was. Because I do remember kind of bypassing the cabbage and the lettuce and all that stuff.
Yeah, you were kind of on the bottom of that Maslow's hierarchy, right? You weren't at that self-actualization yet. Yeah.
And so growing up, it was just a lot of fried food and food that was government cheese. I do remember it came in tin foil and blocks like this, things like that. And so it was just, and then you're inactive. And so I grew up very fat throughout elementary school, junior high, and high school. And so my the summer before senior year of high school, I was like, man, I want to ask Nakaya to the prom, this girl that I had a crush on. And so I remember asking my science partner in high school, his name is Dave, he was on the football team. He would never hang out with me like in the quad. Yeah. But in science class, we were partners, right? And so we built a friendship. I was like, Dave, next year, senior year, prom, I want to take Nakaya. I need to get in shape so I can ask her out. What do I do? Dude, he took me into the school gym, and it was the most scary, most overwhelming sights and sounds. And you know this, when you first pick up a barbell, you don't have that mind-muscle connection, and so you're just kind of flopping around everywhere. Oh, yeah. And then you see guys that have like 2 plates on a bench press just repping it out because they've got that mind-muscle connection, and you're like, obviously I'm broken, something's wrong with me, right? But I just kept going with him. And then during the summer before senior year, I kept doing it on my own, and he taught me how to eat healthy. Dude, I came back senior year of high school, 35 pounds lighter, more confident, higher self-esteem, self-image. Never quite worked up a nerve to ask Nakaya to the prom, so I never went to the prom. Okay. But dude, it changed my perspective. So graduate high school, got certified as a personal trainer, and like, I'm gonna be a personal trainer. Didn't quite work that way because I didn't know how to sell and market myself. Okay. So I was a personal trainer in a big box gym, LA Fitness. I had like 3 clients within the first like 4 months. And so to make ends meet, I also worked at Disneyland as a busboy and a fry cook. And I worked at a gay bar on the weekends as a bouncer because the gay bar paid more than the straight bar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you're hustling then, right?
Yeah, man.
But
I knew fitness was my thing. Like I knew that's what I want to do the rest of my life. I just didn't know how to make it a full-time gig yet.
Was the fitness, like putting in the work and getting some results, was that the first time that you can recollect, like setting a goal in that way and then achieving it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like for me, the first time I set a goal and achieved it was senior year of high school. Okay. Or the summer before senior year. Which I look at my kids now, my daughter's 13, my son's 15. They've accomplished hundreds of goals. Yeah. From building an intricate Lego thing to sports to school to travel, you know, seeing X number of countries by this age. That wasn't in the cards for me. What was in the cards was to come to a free country where I have opportunity. So imagine that.
Yeah. So then you had to close this gap. You had to close this skills gap in sales and marketing and putting yourself out there and attracting people to what you had to offer in this space. And what was that like?
Dude, that's exactly it. So you can imagine, in that certification course as a personal trainer, it was the American Council on Exercise. Great, like I learned where the muscle originates and inserts, the adenosine triphosphate system and how creatine works and the Krebs cycle. I never once learned how to attract a client, man. So, and I remember reading in the back of Muscle and Fitness magazine, there was these fractional ads in the very back, and it said, become a personal trainer, earn $100 an hour. Jake, I did the math, 6 clients a day. I could train 6 clients a day and still get my workouts in and eat my food. So that's $600 a day. I'm practically a millionaire if I can make $600 a day.
Yeah.
You know, that's how my mind was working back then, right? I could live like a millionaire. And so, didn't once teach marketing and sales and client attraction. And so if someone accidentally asked how much is personal training, I would say, well, it's $45 an hour. I go, okay, I'll think about it. And they'd walk away. I go, okay. And then I'm like, well, I guess they're still thinking about it. And I had probably hundreds of people out there thinking about it, not realizing there is a skill gap that I needed to acquire and close. The pain then encouraged me to find that skill gap was constantly getting into fights with skinheads at the gay club on the weekends, on Friday, Saturday, Sundays when I worked there. Skinheads would come to the parking lot of that nightclub. It was called Oz, and it was on the 5 freeway in Buena Park, California here. And dude, these skinheads would wait out in the parking lot for the patrons to come out so they can gay bash. And it was our job as bouncers to make sure that didn't happen, that everyone got to their cars safely. Otherwise, the restaurant, well, it was a restaurant during the day and a nightclub bar at night. Otherwise, it was going to go out of business, right? If it had the reputation that, people get their ass beat there. And so I was like, I'm so sick and tired of getting in fights. I don't want this. And I was griping to one of my personal training clients. His name is Jim Franco. I actually talk about him in my book, Man Up. And he goes, you know what your problem is, kid? He always called me kid. At the time he was in his 60s, and I'm in my 20s. He goes, you know what your problem is, kid? You're an order taker. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, yes, you go to a restaurant, you're hungry, the waiter or the waitress is going to take an order. They're not selling you on anything. He goes, you took my order when I signed up for personal training. I said I wanted to work out 3 days a week with a personal trainer for 6 months, and you just filled out the paperwork and took my money. But every time I see you try and sell someone, you're horrible, horrible. You just let people walk away. And so this is why you continue to work at Disneyland as a fry cook and as a bouncer on the weekends. And he challenged me to the point where I was like, well, what should I do? Out of frustration, I was like, well, what do I do, Jim? And he's like, I'm going to help you. And the next day, he goes, tomorrow I'm going to bring you, he brought me a cassette tape of Tom Hopkins. I don't even know if Tom Hopkins is around anymore. This dude that talks about how to sell real estate on a cassette tape. And I would fall asleep listening to Tom Hopkins and Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy, all these cassette tapes that Jim Franco would bring. And I'd put the headphones on and put the cassette tape in, and I'd just fall asleep and wake up tangled up in the headphone wires. But it took, because I learned salesmanship, and before I know it, I quit my 2 jobs and was a full-time personal trainer in a gym. Okay. Yeah.
So then, next logical move there is have hundreds and hundreds of franchise locations.
It wasn't quite that jump.
Well, it goes from there and then hundreds of locations.
Yeah.
But so, how did you decide then that you wanted to become an entrepreneur? I think that's a very different shift in mindset. So now you're successful at bringing people through the door. It's your sole source of income. It's your zone of genius that you're working in. What about scaling?
Yeah.
And what triggered that?
I think deep down inside we're all capable of being entrepreneurs. You get frustrated enough with how things are and you don't like it, you can go create change. We live in a free country. Like in the Soviet Union, I couldn't do that growing up, right? Here I could. And so I do remember when I worked at Disneyland and as a fry cook, I wanted to put a little parsley around the plate to make it look nice, like garnish.
Yeah.
And my lead was like, we don't do that. I'm like, yeah, but it's a big giant plate with a big wide edge, like a little parsley would look nice. He's like, we don't do that. Oh, okay. So I was like, well, F this guy, right? I'm like, one day I'm going to be my own boss. We often say that when we're frustrated, but I think it's stuck. And now I wouldn't have opened up a restaurant, obviously, so it's not like one day I'm going to open my own restaurant. But as I'm complaining again, frustrated with my pay at LA Fitness because I was getting paid $13 an hour while they were charging my clients $45 an hour, right? But again, it's the gym. It's the gym's clients. I'm just an employee. And so to me, it was like, well, that's unfair. Well, again, if something's unfair, you don't like it, do something about it, but stop complaining. And so Jim Franco leaned on me when I'm like, do you realize I'm getting paid like $12.50 an hour to train you? And next month I'll get paid $13.50, but then it'll cap off at $14 until I become a master trainer, which means a college degree. And I don't even have a college degree, Jim. I just have a certification. Right? And he goes, have you thought about opening up your own studio? Whoa. I go, tell me how that would look. He goes, you would be your own boss and you would have your own trainers and, well, you would make the lion's share of the money like the gym is instead of, I was like, wow, but I don't know how. Again, the cassette tape started to roll in. And him being an entrepreneur, he kind of took me under his wing.
Yeah.
He loaned me $52,000 at 8% interest. And after I paid him back, we were still 50-50 business partners. So he got a smoking deal. Like I didn't know how to negotiate back then. So he goes, I'm going to be your 50% business partner. I'm going to loan you $52,000 that you need to build out because I kind of come up with that number. Like that's what I need for like a 3,000 square foot gym. And then after you pay me back with 8% interest, I'm still your business partner. I was like, okay. And so while I got the short end of the stick there, yet another lesson from good old Jim Franco, and next time negotiate better. Right? And so opened up one personal training studio with him as my business partner over the next 3 years. Opened up 4 more on my own, using the skill sets and the knowledge he taught me and the ability to make money, sell, market, persuade, influence, get people on EFT, which is recurring revenue, right? Membership fees.
Yeah, of course.
And so that changed that's life-changing money. That's life-changing money. And then seeing people's lives get impacted through fitness, because you know this, man, when your body changes, your brain chemistry changes, your mindset changes, your confidence, self-esteem.
The lens in which you view the world radically is altered.
Done. So therefore, all of a sudden, your marriage changes for the better, your work, your money, your outlook. And so I was like, holy crap. Through my gyms, I'm helping now hundreds of people throughout San Diego County, because by that point I'd moved to San Diego County. Like, this is amazing. I'm transforming people's lives, not just their health, right? And so, you fast forward, back then it was one-on-one personal training that I was doing, and I had personal trainers working for me who were doing one-on-one. But once the housing market crashed in 2008, I knew that we had to go to one-on-many. In other words, instead of charging a client $600 to $800 a month to work with us 3-4 days a week one-on-one, I'm like, if I can charge $147 a month and get 20-30 clients in a room to work with one coach in a group training model, a boot camp, I think I've got something here. So on the heels of the housing market crash in 2008, by 2010, I'd created the first Fit Body Bootcamp prototype. By 2012, we franchised after having 4 prototypes here in Costa Mesa, California. We franchised in 2012, and it was just hockey stick all the way up until the coronavirus.
Okay. Absolutely. I think we'll certainly touch on that here in a little bit. One of the things I'm really fascinated about as well is your book, Man Up. It's a powerful book. And it's very candid and open about your process of looking inward and then understanding that you had to shift your perspective and your mindset around leadership and serving others and like what it means to be organized and execute every day and be disciplined. When you reflect back on who you were when you wrote that book and you look at who you are now, I think one, what would you tell the guy? And then two, what's the biggest change in your personality or the way that you operate in life?
I wrote Man Up because, you think about Fit Body Bootcamp at 2008 and 9 is when I thought of it, just because the world people couldn't afford one-on-one personal training, right? So I was like, all right, I need a group training model. By 2010, I have the prototype. A couple of years later, I have a few locations and, okay, this model makes sense. So then I franchise it because more gym owners and franchises want to convert to the group model. being from the fitness world, I came up with a great model. I built a better mousetrap. I didn't build my leadership and entrepreneurial muscles any bigger and stronger. And so as you grow into a franchise, now you have more employees in an office, you have more personalities, you have franchisees who are business partners. And I was never a great leader. I realize now the weakest link will show up and it'll be the strongest part of that chain. The weakest link will be the strongest part of that chain. And for me, it was leadership. I was a poor communicator. I was passive aggressive. I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And so I just kind of kept everything to myself. And then when I finally was to the point where I'm just fed up, I would explode at an employee, which really messed up my employee retention rate, as you can imagine. One day, I had 3 employees quit on the same day. Like, that's how bad of a leader I was, man. And by the way, that's out of a total of 9 employees. It's like a third of my staff quit.
Yeah.
Right? A third of my staff quit. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm obviously the problem.
Yeah.
I'm not a good visionary. I'm not a great leader. I'm the problem. And so frustrated, ready to quit franchising, I sat in my car and I'm listening to Howard Stern. And he's interviewing a guy named Howard Wasden, a Navy SEAL from the 90s who wrote a memoir. And in his memoirs, so I bought the book because Howard Stern said you should read the book, and I'm a big Howard Stern fan, so I bought the book and read it. And in it, I learned things like how to prioritize and execute, and how to have a mission outline before you go and get on a mission, and what the vision of that mission should be. What do you want to achieve? And, for them, for the SEALs, do you want to kill someone? Do you want to capture the bad guy? Do you want to just gather intel? For me, I was like, if you asked me, Bedros, how many locations do you want with Fit Body Bootcamp? I would have said a lot. And if you said, well, when do you want to buy? I would say, Jake, as soon as possible. That is a very unclear mission and vision.
Yeah.
So once I got clarity on all that stuff, I just kept reading one Navy SEAL book after another. 1, the stories were fascinating. And 2, the lessons from them in the battlefield were directly translated into the business field. Like, every SEAL knows all the important skills: how to be a breacher, how to be an assaulter, how to be a sniper. Now, like, I understand their language now. I've read, like, in like a 3-year period, I read 14 books, right? And then I just kept reading their books because I'm like, holy crap, the business field and the battlefield is no different. They bleed blood. If they do something wrong, we bleed money. And then if you bleed enough money, you end up eating a bullet and then bleeding blood afterwards. And so for me, as I began to level up in leadership, as I read those books, my business changed, my employee retention changed, my franchises were blowing up. And so because of that, it was like a 5-year transformation. At the end of that 5 years, I just said, I'm gonna write this book for anyone else who's got great ideas, wants to do something big in terms of business, but doesn't know how to lead. Like, leadership is the problem, leadership is the solution. And so there's 6 pillars of entrepreneurial leadership that I talk about in here that make someone a high-performing human. Those 6 pillars I developed over those 5-year period, and has completely transformed me, not only in my business, but in my relationship with my wife, my kids, my friends, my business partners. Now I've got 7 different companies. They're either doing multiple 7 figures, 8 figures, or 9 figures. And I just keep acquiring more companies, because when you are squared away, you attract people, business, good things. When you're a loser like I was, as a leader, I was repelling some of my best employees, best franchisees, and almost lost my wife and kids. Wow. And so looking back now, I wrote the book, went on sale in 2018, it's 2021 now. I still look back and go, what would I have added to it? What would I have changed? Like, nothing. I decided to be fully vulnerable, put it all in there. Have I become a better leader since? Yes. Am I always going to get better? Yes. As I go, I'm a work in progress. It's like, leadership, I realize, is a very, you never arrive at your best level of leadership, and the moment you stop, it's a perishable muscle. It begins to atrophy.
Yeah, one of the things, and I'm still fairly early on in my journey of acquiring knowledge and trying to implement it in my life and going through that, but what I'm realizing is I've got to forgive myself for the process of relearning.
Yes.
Right? And just like, yes, I may have known that. Yes, I may have been really disciplined in this area of my life, but quite frankly, you're going to forget everything that you've learned at least once in your life, and you need reminders. And I heard a really interesting quote, and I want to ask you kind of what it means to you, which is, amateur says, I already know, and the master says, thanks for the reminder.
I love that. A white belt mentality. Just show up always as a white belt mentality. You can always learn from someone, even if you relearn on what not to do. The reminder of what not to do.
Absolutely.
In fact, to that point, I won't mention any company names or people names, but I'll be taking a trip next week to a different state where I'll be talking to one of my business partners in a company that I acquired equity in. Again, sorry for sounding vague. It's just it's
fine.
not cool to throw someone's name out there, right? He is super talented as a coder and a programmer. This will be a $500 million business, which is why I've literally put in just over $250,000 in money in funding this. But he's a horrible, horrible, horrible CEO. And we don't have the time for him to go through the 5 years of learning like I did to become a better leader and CEO. So the conversation I'm going to have with him is, let's just keep you as CEO, but give you the title as lead developer.
Yeah.
And let's plug in a real COO to run the company who can communicate, who has a better vision, who can kind of get things done, won't get offended, isn't passive aggressive. Because basically the conversation is, I've walked in your shoes. This will be a good company 5 years from now, but to time collapse, we need to just bring in a new leader and you do what you do best, which is code and program. Elon Musk. He has CEOs for all his companies. He's the lead engineer. Yet he owns the majority of equity in all his companies.
Yeah.
It's just he's not out there calling the shots because some people aren't meant to call shots.
So B,
Yeah.
here's my next question for you. With everything that you just said, Main Street's hurting right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about your book, we talked about your story, the self-awareness that you had to have, the skills gap that you had to close, the peaks and valleys so far. This is an interesting time. COVID's an interesting time.
Crazy time.
There's a lot of businesses shut down. There's a lot of mindsets that are eroded, disenfranchised, frustrated. What do you say to the business owner that's looking and saying, like, what do I need to be successful in this new world that we're in when my hands are cuffed, essentially, to be able to run my business?
Yeah. Well, your hands are never cuffed. Your hands are never, they're getting more cuffed every day as our great country turns more socialist and leans into communism. Let's just remember that communism has always fallen. Sadly, we may get worse before we get better. That's just the reality of it. And this is someone who's come from a communist country and has gone back and visited in the 90s. But remember, in 91 it fell. Communism fell. Historically, communism will always fall. However, the promise of socialism and everything for everyone is just so enticing. It's so enticing. And so let's tax the rich. The rich will always find a way to then tax their customers and to punish their employees. Because the moment you begin to overtax me, I will just raise the prices on my products and services and take away things like healthcare and paid time off and 401ks from my employees. I will always find a way to thrive. I will not lower the quality of lifestyle that I live, the experiences that I have on this planet, and the charities that I donate to, just so I can pay the government more taxes. So, that said, your hands aren't always tied. That's what the entrepreneur needs to know. You can do all those things. Now, more than that, get involved. Use your voice. Maybe don't wear the mask. Don't muzzle yourself voluntarily. Because we are in a free country, and to stay free, we have to sometimes rock the boat. Are you willing to? I don't know. I am. And so there are two things, and only two things we can control in any situation, which is our effort and attitude. So right now is a time where entrepreneurs have to put in way more effort, 10 times more effort to make the same amount of money. Because employees are hard to find, as you and I were talking about before we started filming, right? You said even entry-level jobs
are getting $1,500 or so.
That's crazy.
Signing bonuses.
Signing bonuses, exactly. We were looking for a web developer. We said, look, we're looking for one for $85,000, entry-level web developer, 401k, health benefits, 21 days of paying time off, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just told Jesse, our head of HR, take it from 85,000 to 100 grand. Just an additional 15 G's. Because when the government gives you so much stimulus money to stay home and then super extends your unemployment benefits, what is your reason to wanting to come to work unless you're a person of high moral character and you're like, you know what, I've got work ethic and I'm not just going to be a bump on the log. So that's the reality right now. However, the worst has yet to come. Like, it wasn't during 2020, not during this early 2021 phase. As that stimulus money runs out, as the unemployment comes to an end, and as inflation, which we're seeing now, concrete, lumber, gasoline, food, everything's going up in price. Winter is coming like no one's business. And as Tony Robbins says, the entrepreneur that is not built and prepared for the winter will perish. And so winter is coming. Everyone thinks that winter came and passed, that it was that 12 months of COVID.
Yeah.
Winter is about to hit us in the next 12 months, and you just wait to see what kind of thinning of the herd. Which, for the entrepreneurs that are like, you know what, I can control my effort, I can control my attitude, and I will figure out a way, I will find a way, I will thrive no matter what. When it's thinning, you can buy out your competition for pennies on the dollar. You can take over your industry when the other guy folds. You just have to be more aggressive and more consistent and not fold. I just see so many businesses folding, but I mean, that is the current state of affairs with the government right now. That's what they want.
Well, and there's so many people who are just kind of asleep at the wheel right now too. That intensity muscle that is just atrophying. And a lot of people, they may have had to take a job that, I know a lot of people are delivering food during COVID that came from really nice, well-paying jobs that kind of got shut down.
Yeah.
The next step is personal growth, right? You have to go invest in yourself.
Yeah. Personal growth has the highest return on investment.
Absolutely.
It's not Bitcoin, it's personal growth.
Personal growth greater than Bitcoin as far as ROI for sure. You created a program that is, it's pretty intense, Bedros. I'm not gonna lie, I went through it. We talked about it at the beginning of the podcast. Let's talk about it now, the Modern Day Night Project.
Yeah.
75 hours.
75 hours of very intense mental, physical, emotional breakdown and rebuild. And it's not the physical part that's the hardest. It is the parts that we don't show on video on social media where we sit there for 3-hour chunks at a time with our journal open, our battle books, and we talk about that first sentence, if you remember, in the battle book is, the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life was, and then you're having to write down something that you've just buried, ignored, avoided, didn't want to talk about, yet pops up in areas of your life and sabotages you.
Yeah.
For me, that sentence, because every class, we're about to do class 09 now, we're 2 years into the project, you're part of class 01. Every class, when I start that, I still kind of get that knot in my gut. All right, guys, I'm going to read my sentence, and then you're going to write yours. The worst thing that ever happened to me in my life was I was molested by 2 older boys when I was between the ages of 4 and 6 in Armenia. And then I look at them, and you can just see buttholes just puckering because I don't want to talk about what bad thing has happened to me. Could have been physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. Could be just alcoholism. Could be infidelity that you've lost control of because now it's become an addiction. Could be some other vice. It could be that you were falling asleep. You fell asleep behind the steering wheel and you hit a family of 4 in a car. Every single one of them died and you lived. We've seen all of that in the project. And when men are suffering through life and white knuckling through life and have no one to really talk to. What's great about women? Your wife, my wife, they can get together, crack open a bottle of wine and just start talking about deep stuff. Men, we'll talk about jujitsu, we'll talk about the sporting events that's happening. How's the weather in Idaho? How's the weather in California? As though we don't have an app that we can find out exactly what the relative humidity is in any city at any given time on the planet. But we keep it shallow, don't we?
For sure.
The only time we go deep is when men have suffered together. There's the line of blood is thicker than water. Right. That's completely taken out of context. And I teach the right way that it was written, which is the covenant of the blood is thicker than the water of the womb. Yeah. The relationship built between men who have suffered and spilled blood together is thicker than the water of the womb, people that came from the same womb, siblings. And the project really starts off with just 16 men who don't know each other but are there for a 75-hour experience, can ring the bell and quit anytime. The Navy SEAL and the Marine structured the program, the physical side of it. I teach the business development piece, the personal development piece, and taking your wife back on dates again, and etc. That hunt and destroy piece where we kind of go through the toxic cognitions and the limiting beliefs, and then come out the other side with your superpowers. But all this to say that 16 men start together. The only way you're going to be open and vulnerable is if we just sleep deprive you, physically beat you down, and put you in situations where the only way you're going to make it through that physical evolution, whether it's pulling a truck or surviving with the waves hitting you at the beach, is if you're linked up with the guy next to you, or you're pushing or pulling the truck and you're yelling at the guy in front of you to pull harder, brother, we can do it. And before you know it, that first 24 hours is just to bond these men who don't know what's coming next after the 24 hours, which is the deep work. And now you're like, there was snot coming out of my face in front of these guys. I started crying when I was crawling in the pit. The waves almost took me away. If I had not been linked up with these guys, I'll talk about anything in this journal session, right? And that's the vulnerability, and that's what we're looking for, because men can't just sit around a table, crack open a bottle of wine, and do the deep work. We need an environment where we are like battling and bonding, and then able to do the deep work and heal. And that's what the project is.
And we've absolutely gotten so comfortable in our climate-controlled environments and our ability to dodge those introspective conversations. And since our social fabric, even really close to you from a family standpoint, there's not people necessarily pushing you all the time in order to give you those life lessons or like guide you in that. So there's a lot of men who are lost out there in the world.
In fact,
right now.
the current social climate around, whether it's the spouses and the friends and the coworkers, like, dude, it wasn't your fault. Man, you tried. You gave it your best effort. They actually want to bubble wrap you. They want to absolve you of your guilt and the fact that you didn't try hard enough, and make you feel better and put training wheels on you. And at the project, we're like, no, man, we're going to give honest feedback. Like, you were not leading well. You were not communicating well. You were not problem solving well. This probably shows up in other parts of your life, when you're passive aggressive with your wife, when you know that you need to have a conversation and you don't, and then you start feeling all this anxiety, because anxiety is anticipation of future pain. And if you're not having the conversation, you're anticipating the future pain. Until you have the conversation, you're not going to end up, and so you're going to have the stressed out human who then snaps at his kids or his wife or his coworkers, and it's like, well, I don't know where that came from. Like, let's do the deep work and find out, buddy.
Coming out of the other side of the project, and my personal experience is really interesting, because the volume does get kind of turned down on most other things in life, and it gives you some time to think about what it is that you want, and what do you want to achieve, and how do you want to achieve it, by what means, what kind of man do you want to be, what kind of father do you want to be, what kind of friend, how do you want to be involved in your community. You cannot help but reflect on that, because you're a captive audience for 75 hours.
You take your phone away from you. You don't even go to a hotel to sleep. You sleep at the compound.
Yeah.
Well, you went to a hotel, but that was the first class. Everyone else
you
has
guys
to sleep at the compound.
Yeah, you guys treated us nice in that first class.
Yeah, you guys got first class treatment.
Well, looking at the videos now, the social media that's posted of these guys' journeys, maybe outside looking in, somebody might say, hey, this is crazy. Why would you do this? How does somebody know it's for them?
It's simple, man. You go to the website and you read words like, hey, if you're dealing with this inner battle, you're suffering in silence, you're white knuckling through life, you're just ignoring, avoiding pain, there are some vices in your life that you're just kind of using as a crutch and hoping that no one finds out. This is like, you immediately, there's a gut sensation that goes, holy crap, the words on this website are written for me.
Yeah.
It's so polarizing that you either go there and you go, this is not for me, or you go, someone wrote this for me, and looks like I need that, and they point to the video, I need that to un-F myself. It's like, I've gotten F'd up through life. Some are self-imposed, others are situational, like the abuse that happened to me, the abuse that happened to you. It was situational. You didn't ask for that, I didn't ask for that, but it happened to us. And if we didn't process through it and heal through it, and came out the other side as a better human being, and a human being that's whole, we're going to show up like you said, with these tainted lens on. We see the world as a toxic, hurtful, potentially dangerous place.
Yeah.
Well, do you see your relationship that way? And if you do, how awful is that? What about your work? What about your kids? What if you can take those filters off and just see the world for what it is? It's really a good place. We all get along for the most part. But if, like right now, the media is doing a great job putting these filters on us that every cop is bad, and whites hate blacks, and blacks hate whites, and the economy was messed up by the orange man, and the bumbling idiot gray-haired man is trying to fix it all. Like, the media is doing a great job putting filters on us. Well, we do a great job putting filters on ourselves through damage that has happened through abuse and trauma, etc. And take those filters off and watch how life actually opens up for you, man. It's amazing.
100%. I'll never forget, maybe 15 hours into the project, we're out in the field and we're working out, and I've got my legs out because I
was wondering if you were going to bring this up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were doing, I can't remember, like butterfly kicks or something like that. And somebody came by, it was one of the instructors, probably Steve, because he's out of his mind. And he put a jug or, whatever it is, like a third or a half of a jug of water on my legs, and I had to hold it out there for a minute.
5-gallon jug, but it was a third full.
Something like that.
And I remember him putting it on there, and I remember you saying, and if you remember how this all happened, you were doing push-ups.
Yep.
And you're like, I can't do push-ups anymore because you had torn your labia.
My labrum.
Labrum.
Yeah,
sorry.
Same thing.
Yeah, labrums. Right. That's right. The running joke was labia.
Yeah.
We do just tear these guys apart just
Absolutely.
if you're watching the show.
Yeah, I'm whatever, 14 hours in, I just fall, and I thought something was really torn. It definitely was.
Yeah.
But continue.
And so Steve puts you on your back to do butterfly kicks instead of push-ups.
Yeah.
And then you're like, gosh, this is hard. And he's like, oh, let's just give you an example of what hard is. And it was amazing how you were able to hold up a heavy water jug when you were barely doing your legs.
Yeah.
And as soon as the water jug is removed, perspective now shows you that, oh, you know what? It's actually, I can do this all day long.
If you remember as well, I failed the team 3 or 4 times. So everybody had to keep going through the, whatever the push-ups that they were doing or holding their positions. And it was 3 or 4 times that I dropped this jug because what I was looking for was sympathy.
Yeah.
More than going inside and trying to figure out what I needed to dust off or what beast I needed to find inside of me to just be present and do the thing that's being asked of me. And that was my problem.
That was, and if we go a layer deep into sympathy, it was looking for approval and validation from someone else of authority. Yeah. You are the greatest source of authority, my friend. The greatest source of approval, validation comes from inside, not externally. And so whether we're looking for sympathy, approval, validation from an external source, if I could just make so-and-so happy, if I could just do this and get their attaboy. I don't need anyone's fucking attaboy. You don't need anyone's attaboy. And I remember just seeing you turn the corner where you're like, I don't need anyone's fucking attaboy. Those words didn't come out of your mouth, but I was like, this motherfucker is locked and loaded now.
Yeah. Please
stay out of his way because he will give himself all the validation, approval that he needs. Zero sympathy, because this is not a man who lives off sympathy anymore. And it was so neat to see you and all these guys who actually stayed through the 75 hours. There's a turning point, a flip of a switch where we could beat them and they will not quit and get up and ring the bell. They just look at us with these icy eyes like, what else do you have? And it's like, well, fuck, I can't. That's all I got. As an instructor, that's all I got. So it looks like you're going to make it. And that's such a good feeling.
100%. And it's a great feeling to be on the other side of that as well, is to discover that about yourself and say, yeah, I can fucking handle anything.
And look at like all that's happened to you in this short 2-year period, man.
Absolutely.
Like just your development, your growth. Like I just like burst in excitement when I see that because you're part of the very first class. And so I think it was Harvard that did something like a 60-year study on during World War II, they took these like 2,000 people and they've been tracking them through their life. And now there's like a couple dozen left. And it's all about what makes you happy. Some became multimillionaires and killed themselves. Others were like dead broke but super happy. And they're just all these, right? They're following them. And so with us, like you're part of Project Class 01 and we get to see with Class 01, like, all right, how long does the benefits last? Well, so far, 2 years. Well, it was July of 2018.
Yep.
18?
19.
19. So almost 2 years. But it's so cool to see that, man. Like in you and CJ and all the guys that went through that class. And all we did is facilitate this experience. Like you guys were the one who voluntarily went through it because the bell was available for you to ring anytime and walk away and quit. How neat is that? And there was people that quit and y'all decided to stay.
Absolutely. Hey, and the project kind of birthed another program as well, and I'm so fascinated by this, and it is one of my favorite things to follow on social media, which is the Squire Program, and it really pulls at my heart. I have a son who's 7 years old. I'm really close to him. I can't wait till he's old enough to be able to go through this program. It's something I'm looking forward to. Maybe talk about the Squire Program.
You know, so the Squire Program was something that accidentally came about many, many years ago. So my son's 15 right now. When my wife was pregnant with him, Andrew, my wife's uncle gave me a book called Raising a Modern Day Knight, hence Modern Day Knight Project, right? I was like, you know what? Yeah, we all need to be modern day knights. And as I read that book, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to learn these skills. I need to be a man of honor. I need to have emotional discipline. I need to have my own core values to live by. And so it was so neat. I was like, these are the things I got to teach my young son who's in the womb right now. Like, I better learn these skills now, right? Just truth. I mean, the fact is I love my dad to pieces, but there wasn't much like, hey, son, here's how a man lives and operates and leads, right?
Sure.
That wasn't there because he was just like, we need a roof over your head. Cool. Thanks, Dad. And so, you know, I try and do all that, you know, raise my son that way. And part of the thing that the book explains is when your son comes to of age, 13, 14, 15 years old, cultures from thousands of years have done this, where there's a rite of passage where a young boy gets a seat at the table with the men. See, with young girls, when they start having their menstrual cycle and they start sprouting boobs, it's a very physical transformation that happens. It's a very physical thing that says you're now a lady. Nothing like that happens with us as when we go from boys to men, right? We slowly grow a little mustache and armpit hair, but nothing, I'm not bleeding, there's no boob sprouting, and there's nothing that says that. And so all these cultures had this ritual where one of the ones from New Guinea was they would plan it out where, you know, the little boys hanging around at home with the mom or in the cave, wherever it was. And of course, these men with masks that look just demonic come in and they rip the boy away from the mom and they take him outside and they kind of beat him up. And they're being rough with him, but eventually they're not so rough where they're allowing this boy to fight back. And they let him fight back and fight back and fight back to the point where they let him win. And when this little boy wins, he's now 13 years old, he wins, the main demon guy takes his mask off and slaps it on the little boy. Says, you are now in a position to have a seat at the table. Yet another culture does the same thing, strips the boy away from the mom, gives the boy a knife, cuts the boy on the arm, gives him the knife, and says, now that it's dark, go into the forest, don't come out until tomorrow morning, fend for yourself. So draws blood so that animals can find him, and then go fend for yourself, food, water, shelter, and protection. And when you come back out, you now have a seat at the table. Not that you're a man, you now have a seat at the table to be part of the tribe of men who will protect, who will preside, who will provide, and who will ultimately maybe create their own tribe. And we've lost that. This is why men look to, or boys look to gangs as a rite of passage. When dad's absent, you're looking for the neighborhood boys. Like my therapist explained to me, he goes, all you were looking for was a rite of passage when you went to those older boys who took advantage of you sexually. It's not your fault. You did nothing. Because I was like, did I do something wrong, Kevin? Right? His name is Kevin, my therapist. He's like, no, man, you were looking for a rite of passage. They took advantage of that sacred thing. I was like, shoot. And so whether you're looking up to your brother, to the older boys, to your dad if your dad's around, or to gangs, there's going to be a rite of passage. And if there isn't, then you have a very confused, lost, insecure male who does not know what his role and responsibility is in society, and he feels torn. My gut tells me I should be doing something, but I feel weird about it because I haven't really been told that that's okay to do. That I could be a savage, but I also need to serve. That I could be a protector, but I also need to provide. And so the Squire Program is that. It's a 14-hour experience for fathers and sons The son's got to be 13 to 15 years old. There's no ringing of the bell, no one quits. And we put these boys and dads through hard experiences together, and then we separate the boys and dads for a few hours, and the dads go get their own lessons with some of our project instructors, and the boys are with myself and Ray and Aaron, the other instructors, and we teach them how to roar. We go through the 25 points of being a modern day knight, you know, things like create your own core values, you know, be willing to stand up for others. Just things that I wish I was told when I was 13 years old, man. I wish that was groomed into me to open doors, right? And so we kind of work with these boys and then bring them back together with the dads, and the dad's like, oh my God, it's been 2 hours and I already see different, like he's sitting differently. His posture is different. And then we created an experience, you know, the big hill, the loop? We send the dads off to go do the hike. And then as they're coming back from the hike, and there's 3 big hills for your audience, at the top of the highest hill, the dads are coming one way and we're coming the other way with the boys. And as we cross paths, the dads don't know this, but we taught the boys how to roar. Their savage roar, their war cry. And they just turn to their dads and like, rah! And the dads just start pouring out and just crying because like, that's my little man. And it's so neat, man. So I took Andrew to Matt Schneider's, when Matt lived out there in Boise, Idaho.
Forward movement training.
Forward movement training, right? And I said, hey, Matt, we need to put my son through this scary experience all day long. And I brought these 9 men along with me who I trust and look up to. And then we're going to circle up around Andrew. And then I'm going to let him know, son, that this is your rite of passage. At the you now have a seat at the table. And it's my responsibility and the responsibility of these 9 men who I trust to kind of mentor you into manhood. And so we did that because the book talks about that, raising a modern day knight. So anyway, as I showed that video, because we did a little video of it on social media, people are like, oh my God, I want to do that with my son. I'm like, well, go get the book and just read it and do it, you know? You have to create some kind of scary experience for him. That's memorable, that's intense, that makes a visceral change from boy to man. They're like, just do it for us. I'm like, all right.
Fine.
So, fine. So if we do our job right over the next decade or two with the Squire Program, we will work our way out of a job with the project. Yeah. Because we'll have created strong, capable, confident men who are protectors, providers, savages, and more importantly, servants to society.
Wonderful. B, as we're wrapping up here, anything else you want to share with the audience? Anything you're excited about coming here in 2021?
You know, man, I don't know if there's any one thing that I'm excited about, but I can tell you this. For your audience, for you, I just see you as a dear friend, as a brother. Being 46 years old, having more gray than I've ever had in my beard, I realize life is all about phases. So there's phases of winning, there's phases of losing. And if you're in a winning phase right now, and whoever your audience member is right now, they're listening to this, if you're in a losing phase right now, don't worry, the winning phase is around the corner. And if you're in a winning phase, the losing phase is right around the corner. And both of those are needed, as it turns out. And I'm learning that more than ever now, having been in the CEO of a fitness franchise during COVID, and now we're on the upswing again, building our franchise back up. But we need the losing seasons and the winning seasons, and whatever season you're in, the other one's just around the corner.
I love it. Bedros, thank you so much
for
spending some time with me today. Thanks for just unpacking all the things that you've done and continue to do, and I'm looking forward to the next time we get an opportunity to spend some time together.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Cheers.